all of us. Some of us are better at cleaning up the fragments than others, but most of us spend too much time trying to glue the pieces back together before we realize that chunk of us was permanently broken. We all have different stories. Some of them are much worse than others, but when it gets down to it, they're all pretty bad. Some of us were beaten, some of us were bullied, some of us were abused, some of us were attacked, some of us were raped, some of us were shit on, some of us were murdered, some of us were resurrected. Some of us just want to tell our story to anyone who is willing to listen. Some of us just want to find someone who will keep our stories secret. We all just want somebody to talk to. And being ignored is the worst, because you're struggling and searching to find a reason to exist, to keep on existing. And the assholes around you do nothing, absolutely nothing, only pretending you don't exist, showing you what it would be like if you weren't there. Almost like they're telling you to get lost, convincing you that you weren't worth it without even saying a single word. It's hard to live in a world where you find the courage to croak and finally break the silence. But they just stare through you like air, like you were nothing. But they are nothing. They don't realize they need air to survive, to breathe. It's not something they can pretend doesn't exist. It has every right and every reason to exist. It deserves to be acknowledged every once in a while, even if it is just once. You don't want to be fleeing from a hurricane you didn't see coming because you ignored the heavy winds brewing around you, breaking the silence with the whirlwind of howls that they decided was better to ignore. Act like it's non-existent, thinking it would just go away because they don't understand anything about it. Nothing. Not a thing. But this is not to say that those people have never been trampled on. They all have been. They also have a reason to hold their breath. They have a story they haven't told you. They're probably still trying to solve that impossible puzzle with pieces of glass shards that fell from their heart. But this is no excuse to be cruel. One suffering does not justify another. It just makes you another one of them. We are the only species that manages to convince each other to go against our entire reason of being. We are the only species that drive each other to death. We are the only species that commit suicide. There's something very wrong when a species goes against its natural instinct to survive. That's how fucked up we all are. And it's an evil, vicious cycle. So be the one to break the silence. I also have another piece that I just wrote. It's called Unspoken Silence. Very new, actually. I just wrote it on the 24th of February. Look around. Many of the people you see think they're absolutely hideous. Most of them will never admit it. They're scared someone might agree with them. And they have every right to be terrified. Humans are so cruel. Some people remember every time they were ever called ugly since they were 10 years old. They hear it in the background of their head every time they look in the mirror. Old voices screaming over the whispers in their heart that are still trying to convince them they're beautiful. Too many people here think they're hideous. Too many of you think you're some sort of monster, a freak of nature, a forever outcast. And if you truly believe you're ugly, I have some words for you. You're beautiful. And what's sad about that is you probably don't believe me. You probably still allow the little voices to filter out my words. But I'm not speaking to your head. I'm speaking to your heart. I want your heart to listen to me. You're beautiful. And while you still somehow convince yourself you're not, know that someone out there thinks you're the most beautiful person they've ever seen. They may never have the courage to tell you, because that person could be a total stranger. They could be anyone. Someone on a bus, someone at a stoplight, someone you pass on the street, a person you may never see again. But they could be anyone. They might even see you every day. And they might also think they're too ugly to be worth talking to, suffering through the exact same struggle you are. So don't feel incomplete just because you don't hear complimenting words. Just know that to someone, somewhere, you're beautiful. start to believe me. Start to believe yourself. Too often you remember every insult thrown at you. Too often you forget when you're complimented. And that's wrong. You are one of a kind. You need to celebrate yourself. And if you're ever about to give up, you just need to remember that to someone, somewhere, you're beautiful. And I can hear your silent words. Please promise me you'll never forget you're beautiful. Learn to listen to the sentences never said. Promise me you'll listen to the best words that were never spoken. So listen close. You're beautiful. Promise me you'll never